Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another one of our weekly Bofuri discussion videos. Today we're going to be talking all about episode 10, as well as going into a deep dive on the character of Payne. And yeah, I'm back. If you've been wondering where I've been the last few days, go watch my YouTube story. I'm not going to explain it here. Before we get into the video proper though, I do, as always, want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Bubblubber, at Matt87Eagle, at Blue Rose Enigma, at Janame, at DXAna, at Sirius9752, and at Dragon Kid TV. Thank you all so much for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, everybody. And if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Bofuri video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now, as you can probably tell from the title of the video and the thumbnail, I really dug Payne's introduction. Well, I shouldn't say introduction, but like the first real look at Payne that we got in this week's video. But before we get into all of that, because yes, we're going to be talking about some color, symbolism, my favorite thing. We're going to be talking about some color stuff, but before we get into Payne and all that, I do want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on this week's episode as a whole, since, you know, it's typically what we do here. We don't always talk about the episode specifically, but we usually do. And I want to talk a little bit about how this episode is essentially the Empire Strikes Back of the series, except, you know, it ends up not being that, but it starts that way. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you have not seen the seminal Empire Strikes Back from Star Wars. It basically means it's what it sounds like. It basically means the bad guys getting like a big one-up on our heroes. Although there's not really any bad guys in Bofuri, it's just sort of different guilds. But you know what I mean. The heroes are really put to the test and really challenged by their opponents, in this case, them being the other guilds. And this week in particular, we get stuff like Sally versus Frederica, round two. We get Mai and Yui, versus Dread, which was particularly good. And then we have Kasumi versus Split Sword Shin, and I'm gonna go a little bit into that. I have some thoughts there. And then we get sort of just like a general check-in with characters like Kanade, Chrome, Iz gets a little bit of spotlight, although not enough. My girl is waifu of the season, not getting any respect. But yeah, we get a little bit with those characters as well. And of course, Maple. Maple gets a lot of big moments in this as well. Let's go ahead and hone in on Sally and Frederica round two. I was genuinely sort of surprised that Sally is almost taken off the board here, but it does make sense. It's not something that comes out of nowhere. Sally has been running ragged since the event started, and I like the fact that we see her last episode and at the start of this episode. You can hear, like, even in the voice, right? Even the voice work, Ruriko Noguchi, you hear it in her voice, like she's getting more and more tired as Sally speaks. The more Sally talks, the more you can hear her voice just kind of start to falter and sort of fall apart. It's a really solid performance on Noguchi's end, so I gotta give her credit there. That's really impressive. And the fight itself was actually really dope, because it's not like specifically Frederica versus Sally, it's more like Sally versus a bunch of like Frederica's minions, essentially. And it's not easy. Like, Sally's basically, it's like 1 versus 100. It's like the Heartless fight in Kingdom Hearts 2, and it ain't going well. Somebody doesn't have Donald and Goofy on standby to help out, although Donald, let's be real, isn't much help anyway. Boy still won't heal anybody. But yeah, Sally versus Frederica is great. And Frederica, of course, realizes in this fight, like, oh, Sally's been screwing with me. Those aren't skills. Those are just her reflexes. I'm an idiot. And then Sally basically almost dies here, and I was surprised. I thought that they would actually take Sally off the board. They do not. Maple comes to the rescue. However, they do, ever so briefly, take out Mai and Yui as well as Dread, but I believe all three have only died once, so they still have, they're still allowed to come back. I can't remember the exact limit. I think it's 3 times you're allowed to come back. I don't super know. But yeah, Mai, Yui, and Dread, they all die once. You guys will let me know in the comments how many deaths it is. So yeah, check there if you want exact data. But yeah, Mai and Yui versus Dread was genuinely really interesting. I liked seeing Mai and Yui have a real challenge for the first time, where they don't have Maple at their back, right? It's just those two versus Dread. And Dread, while not physically as strong as Mai and Yui, he is able to outspeed them, and as soon as he gets close, it's basically over. And I was surprised to see that Dread straight up takes Mai and Yui off the board, and Maple in retaliation takes out Dread. This was a great bit of tension, because I really thought that Dread was about to steal all of Maple Tree's hard work. And if anybody could have done it, it would have been Dread. So I really thought that they nailed the Mai and Yui versus Dread fight. I did think that Maple showing up the last second twice, both for Sally and for Mai and Yui, is a little bit kind of heavy-handed. Mind you, she doesn't show up in time to save Mai and Yui, but she does show up in time to stop Dread from taking Maple Tree's stuff. Again, I'm like, okay, it's part of the show, so I can't really be too annoyed, but I would have liked to have seen Dread, like, at the very least, make it out of the cave with their with their orbs, and then get stopped or something like that. Or just, I mean, you could have had, like, if it were me writing, I would have gone full Empire Strikes Back. It's the reason why I say that they don't go full Empire, because the team doesn't really take a big hit. Mai and Yui get taken off the board ever so briefly, but they don't lose any orbs. Nobody's permanently gone. Sally doesn't die, Kasumi doesn't die, nobody really dies. So it's not full Empire, but it's close. Another thing I wanted to talk about very briefly was Kasumi versus Split Sword Shin. They did not build up Shin enough for me to be really engaged. They sort of mentioned Split Sword a few times, so I was aware of who he was as like one of the Flame Emperor's like top guys. I was aware of who he was, but they didn't build him up enough, as enough of a threat. Nor did they really build up the Kasumi Shin thing. At least I don't remember that at all. That could be from the light novels, like maybe in the light novels she mentioned before that her and Shin had some kind of encounter. It doesn't matter, because I don't really care if it's in the light novel. I'm not talking about the light novel, am I? I'm talking about the anime. So yeah, I just didn't feel like that fight meant anything to me. It was cool to see Kasumi bust out, I don't even know what it was. That's sort of like that white-haired mode. She basically goes Ultra Instinct for a minute. It was a cool fight. I love Split Sword Shin's split sword, like the way it splits apart and turns into like almost like daggers. That's really cool, like shards of a sword. It gives me memories of Alice from Alicization, but it just didn't mean enough to me personally. That said, I think the episode overall was very strong. Lots of great moments of tension, lots of really cool moments for the other characters outside of Maple, which is what I've been wanting, even though yes, Maple does show up at the end to save the day, but they were still able to give those characters enough shine where you can see that they are great players away from Maple as well. So overall, I thought this episode was pretty solid. But now we're going to get into the man himself. We're going to talk a little bit about Payne. Payne is, holy crap, what an impression this character makes in about a minute 35. We have built, this is why I said with Shin, it didn't feel like there was enough built up. With Payne, they've been building this dude up in the background as, holy shit, this guy is intense. This guy is the leader of one of the top guilds in the game. He is damn near unstoppable. He's basically a walking god. And they built him up impressively so that by the time we actually get to see him in action, like truly see him in action, not like panning shots or anything, but all these teases were leading to this big cool moment where you get to see Payne in action, and he wipes, and I mean wipes out a guild with no skills and no magic. Nada. This dude takes these guys out, no problem. I was so damn impressed by that. He just uses his own skill. Like in the same way that Sally wasn't using any actual abilities, Payne does the same thing, takes out an entire guild on his own. And he does so on this bridge, which gave me very Indiana Jones flashbacks, very Temple of Doom. And it just made for this like fun, exciting sort of environment for a fight, especially for a sword fight. Because Payne basically appears as this, like, holy knight for holy sword, and he just lays waste to dudes on his way to this rickety bridge, and then he's on the bridge, cutting people down, leaps up in the air, dodging magical blasts, and he does this, like, Link from Legend of Zelda spin sword move. It's so damn cool. The impression this character leaves in a minute and 35 seconds is palpable. This is a very cool character, and we know so little about him. This is how you tease a character. Like, you slowly kind of hint at the character being really tough and really cool, build him up in the background, show him a few times, but don't show him like doing too much. You want to leave that mystery, and then boom, here he is. Like, just like we got, what, 2 episodes after this left? You know there's going to be a big showdown between Payne and Maple, and I'm really excited because they perfectly built this character up. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and talk a bit about his character by going into some color stuff, as well as some of the voice acting stuff. And you guys know me, you know I love me some color symbolism. I admit that I am very much not an expert. I use one site in particular, I will link it in the description, but it is so handy, and I find color to be so interesting, especially like color, like character design, and how, like, what colors they choose to like tell us as much as they can about this character just by the first visual impression. I think that people really brush that kind of stuff aside. I think it's really important, and I think character designers trying to tell you as much about a character through their design as they can before the character even speaks. So I really think that Payne's character is trying to tell you quite a bit. Namely, the fact that this character is blue. This character is super, super blue. If you thought that Sally's character design was very blue, Payne is like blue top to bottom. There's very little color breaking it up outside of yellow. There's yellow accents, he's got yellow hair, but everything else is blue. His armor's blue, his eyes are blue, everything's blue. His sword might as well be blue. Everything about this character is blue. And what does blue tell us? Well, it really is a sort of calming color. It's a very confident color. And when you see blue, you typically sort of, it's usually associated with things that are meant to be supportive, typically associated with a lot of trust. It's one of the reasons, like when you think of like a teacher, usually you think of like the blue collared shirt, right? That sort of like general air of calmness, that sort of respectable nature, that sort of responsible kind of attitude. That's the vibe that you get with the blue armor, the blue eyes. This very calm and serene nature really does come from Payne, right? Like when all the fighting is done, he's a very calm character, very quiet, very serene. He almost feels angelic, right, because of the yellow hair, his calm and serene nature, and that does come through in the blue armor as well. And he's also exceedingly confident, which is another trait from blue. Blue is a very confident color. It's the reason why most blue rangers and Power Rangers are typically the second in command is because of that confidence, and it's mixed with this sort of like right-hand man mentality. The Blue Ranger in every Power Rangers team makes you feel sort of like at peace. Like they're a very calming and responsible color, and that's the vibe you get from Payne, even though he is the leader. And blue typically does have some leadership skills, but it's mainly just the sort of calming color, and I think that comes through in the armor. However, the other color in the armor is, of course, yellow. And yellow is an interesting color because yellow is a very upbeat color, and yet at the same time, it's a very unnerving color, I guess is the word. With Payne's colors, we see he's very energetic. It could be a bit of a sign that he's maybe a little bit egotistical. I haven't personally seen that through his personality, but that could be a hint. Since yellow is typically sort of, it's a very energetic, very loud color, and it's also sort of associated with royalty, right? Yellow, gold, they're both sort of in that same family of color. So that could be leading to that. I don't think so, but it's worth pointing out. And he also instills a lot of caution with the yellow accents in the color, in the blue armor. Since yellow as a color is typically associated with those like caution signs, you know, and when you're on the receiving end of that blue calmness in the armor goes away because you're not receiving the blueness. You're receiving the confidence that comes with the blue armor, and the caution and unnervingness that comes with the yellow accents, the yellow hair. Bit of a stretch with all of this, but I do think it's fun to sort of dive into the character design. He's this very sort of like regal knight type character, and that really comes through, and I really, really like seeing that in his character as well. Like, he does come off as this holy knight, you know, it's sort of perfect. And I can't think of a better Seiyu to pick for that than Kensho Ono. Kensho Ono really bringing in a lot of shades of Giorno, who is also a very similar character, blonde as well, and a character with some similar traits as well. That sort of calm and serene, yet confident, and possibly overconfident, possible egotism there as well. But I do think that it's a bit lighter in tone. I think Ono is really sort of like pulling some of the more aggressive traits of Giorno back, and that's what we're getting with Payne. He's a less aggressive, more sort of calm Giorno in terms of the tone specifically, not in terms of his character, just the vocal tone. And I think that's a really interesting pick. And again, I just really dug Payne. If you couldn't tell, I spent a little too much time talking about the character, but again, I just think this is a perfect build of character, and I can't wait to see him actually get a full scene either next week or in the finale. With that said, everybody, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here. This is a straight up Earl Grey tier episode. A lot of people were telling me like, have you seen Bofuri yet? Have you seen Bofuri yet? Now I have seen Bofuri. Now you know that I've seen it. Yeah, it lived up to the hype. This episode was friggin' great. And that's it for today's video, everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then be sure to go ahead and hit that like button and leave a comment down below, because it all pleases the almighty YouTube algorithm, which helps me out a ton. So if you choose to do so, kudos to you. And if you'd like to go that one step further to help the channel out, then go ahead and check out some of the mugs listed just under this video from our Teespring store. That is super appreciated. Or if you want to help out the channel more regularly, of course, you can check out our Patreon, like these lovely people that you see before you. And speaking of our patrons, I would like to give a big shout out to those of you in the Earl Grey tier. Zevi, Andrew, Branson, Calvin, Crowbar of Irony, Daniel, Digger the Fox, Dominic, Emily, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria, Marshall B, Mater, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Steven, Sakochi, Tristan, and Veridin. Thanks so much to all of you in the Earl Grey tier, as well as those of you in the Orange Pico tier. And if you too would like to join our T-Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys have a great day, and until next time, you stay classy, AniTube, and wash your dang hands.